Right, we're going to look at motifs now in Pride and Prejudice. And, you know, that is a method that you would be able to identify in an extract. And we'll talk about some of the motifs that we come across. So motifs can be anything from, say, a repeated object that symbolises something throughout a story, or it could be a repeated sort of action or concept or noise or sound or idea. Okay, so it's the idea of a motif is just something that is repeated throughout a story that is meant to represent something, or is meant to draw our attention to something. So we'll start off with some of the smaller motifs that you can see in the book, and if you can argue that something is in the book 3 or 4 times, that to me is a motif if you think it's significant. So I think that books are definitely a motif, or this idea of reading, because I feel as though Mr. Bennet's obviously well read, he's passed that down to Lizzy, and they have a discussion about reading and the importance of reading. Lizzy does with Darcy and the Bingley sisters, and I think it just draws on this kind of idea of intelligence, and the fact that, you know, Lizzy obviously is an intelligent woman. Now you can link that to Austen's intentions for Lizzy. She wanted her to be a very kind of open-minded, articulate, sort of free-spirited, opinionated character. So it makes sense for her to be a reader. So I think that reading is significant. And you could even make links between the fact that Lizzy is a reader and Austen is a writer, and she could be saying something about how there are women out there that do read. They do read, and they do read a lot, and look at how clever they are, and how important books are. So you could just zoom out and make a wider connection there between Austen and the fact that she's a writer. So books is definitely one of them. Another motif are eyes, and looking and observing. We have this a lot. We have Darcy's description of Lizzy's eyes as these fine eyes, but we also have a lot of kind of reporting of Darcy looking at Lizzy. So I think that this is important because it creates a sense of like a connection. So giving eye contact with another character, this connection that is more physical than just talking to someone. And also I think that the eyes are the window to the soul, and looking into someone's eyes, I think, helps you to see sort of beyond what they look like physically, and maybe there's like some other connection, like a meeting of minds when you look in the eyes and you're observing. So maybe that's just a little bit too, I don't know, a little bit too kind of philosophical, but I do feel as though eyes are important, an important repeated kind of motif, and observing and looking. Okay, so the next kind of motif that I think is important is this idea of journeys and travelling. journeys take place consistently throughout the story, and nearly every kind of scene in Pride and Prejudice takes place sort of indoors, but there's always seems to be a journey to get to that kind of intimate setting. So, for example, the journey kind of seems to be this catalyst for change. So the first journey is when Lizzy goes to see Jane in Netherfield. That's the first little journey. The first little journey really is when Bingley comes to Longbourn, okay? But then the next little journey is when Lizzy goes to Netherfield, and then the next little journey is when Lizzy goes to Rosings, and then, you know, the next little journey is when, and there all seems to be some drama that takes place. You know, when Lizzy goes to Rosings, you know, Darcy asks her to marry him, and then sort of Lizzy then goes to and she just happens to bump into Darcy, yeah, and then Darcy takes the journey down to Brighton to sort out this chaos. No, he doesn't. He goes to London to sort out the chaos that Lydia has created, and then randomly Lady Catherine, just when you think that Lizzy and Darcy have started to get along and Lizzie's really forgiven Darcy for everything with Jane because Darcy's sorted out everything with Lydia, just when you think there's a bit of calm and everyone's in Longbourn and they're having a great time, bang, 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 Lady Catherine is at the door, and she's taken this crazy journey from her nice little nest in Rosings to Longbourn, and that's completely and utterly beneath her, probably, to even be in such a place as Longbourn. So she really does seem like she kind of sticks out like a sore thumb there. But again, you know, think about these journeys that take place and how once people have arrived, there seems to be some kind of drama. So the journeys are a catalyst for drama. So have a little think about when you've got your extracts, think about journeys. Has someone travelled, okay, to get to this destination? So therefore Austen uses the motif of the journey to create another dramatic moment in the story. So remember how important journeys are. Another example of a motif could be courtship, okay? We have quite a few of them in the story. So we have the courtship between Darcy and Lizzy, and then we have the courtship between Charlotte and Collins, and then we have the courtship of Lydia and Wickham. So that is definitely a motif. So think about the significance of the courtship. Obviously, we know that courtship is significant because marriage was the ultimate goal. So therefore, Austen is talking about something that was incredibly important during the Georgian era, which was marrying within this sort of social construct. Marrying would constitute sort of the most important aspect of you know, a man and a woman's life, and so really important. But one thing we should consider is that the courtship that takes place between these characters represents different types of love, because sometimes there's no love, and it's just marrying out of convenience, but sometimes there is love. So think about the different kinds of nuances of courtship that you have in within the motif itself. Okay, and so the last thing that I think might be important to consider is this idea of the motif of misjudging people, and getting people kind of incorrect, and the first impressions drive much of the conflict here, don't they? The first impressions, and that's essentially what this novel was going to be called, but they're all wrong. The first impressions of people that you get of people are wrong, and these misjudgments cause a lot of problems, and there's misjudgment between Darcy and Elizabeth, but even Elizabeth kind of misjudges Charlotte, and she thinks Charlotte could never do such a thing and just marry but she's just kind of misjudged things. Elizabeth completely misjudges Wickham. She thinks that he's nice, but obviously we find out that he's not. And just poor judgment in general, poor first impressions. So that is definitely a repeated motif in the story. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. So we've got another few minutes. So, and then the last thing we need to consider, so we've got our nice motifs now, is this idea of the omniscient narrator and the free indirect discourse. So what is free indirect discourse? It's where you have a narrator that reports, sort of gives an overview of a character's, or let's do plural, characters' thoughts and feelings, okay? And you get a lot of this, all right? If you don't have lots of dialogue, okay, you might have examples of Austen's narrator actually commenting on discussions that characters have had in an indirect way. So, for instance, Elizabeth felt and thought this and went to see her father. So it's kind of getting an insight into the character's mind without actually using direct or dialogue or direct speech. Okay, and Austen was really good at this because that creates an omniscient narrator, so a narrator that knows everything and sees everything and has this bird's eye view, and it gives us a real sense of getting inside the characters' minds and multiple characters' minds and their thoughts and their feelings. So do have a look in your extract to see if the narrator is commenting on a conversation that a character has had with another character, or their thoughts or feelings about something, because that is free and direct discourse. And remember, quote it, say what the character is thinking and feeling, pull out those words, say why Austen uses this kind of narration. The narration is omniscient. It helps the reader to get a greater sense of how the character is feeling or how characters are feeling without doing, dialogue or direct speech. And it's this overview, this reporting that is a great style, perfect for this gossipy type of novel. Let me just check that I've covered all of that. I think I have. So what I would do then is, when you get your extract, okay, so this is the extract, you need to think about what part of the novel, so where does it come, and then I would literally start to look at those, or a couple of those methods that we've just discussed. So I would say, is there any dialogue? If there's dialogue between two characters, right, so that is a method that Austen is using. Is there sort of a juxtaposition? There will usually be some kind of conflict or debate, because that's why Austen uses the dialogue to create that kind of